2, 3, 4.
Is it a scarf or is it half of a sweater? From what I've heard, it could be a third of a poncho. There's no excuse now not to be knitting. You can do it.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Truly Myrtle podcast. I'm Libby and this is episode 89. I totally got it this time. 89. I looked it up. Do you think I'll make that mistake again? I hope not. We'll see. Anyway, welcome to the podcast. It's lovely to have you with me. If you're new to the show, welcome. And if you're a returning viewer or listener, it's really nice to have you back. I'm just going to talk to you quickly and then I've got an interview for you this week. I just wanted to, I don't know what I wanted to do. Oh God, it's really not one of those days. It's absolutely fine. I wanted to tell you quickly about the colourful cowl that's kicking off in the Truly Myrtle Ravelry group. We're starting a new cowl. We wrapped up our shawls and wraps cowl and everybody's sort of motivated to knit. Some people aren't quite finished. So we've started a colourful cowl. I've drawn winners and prizes for the last knit along and everyone that finished and all the beautiful projects. Thank you so much for everyone who joins in. We really have good fun over there. It's really chatty and friendly. But we've started a new knit along. It's called the Colourful Cowl. Come and join us. Bring your colourful knitting, whatever that means for you. I mean, it doesn't, your idea of colourful. There are no real hard and fast rules about this. So if you're knitting something and you feel like it's really colourful for you, bring it. Even if it's not really colourful, if it's just a little bit colourful, just bring it along. Whips are welcome. We're going to knit for 2 months, I think. We're going to knit along so you can knit anything you like, any Truly Myrtle pattern that you like, garments or shawls or wraps or whatever. Come and join in. It's over in the Ravelry group. I'll put a link in the show notes. You can find those. I think I'll put a link below this video over on my blog. So episode 88 is how it ends on my blog. I don't know. So come and join us in the Colourful Cowl. I've got a hat on my head this week. This is my new hat pattern. It's out today. It's called Bobby and it's a really cute little slouchy, super cozy and warm hat. I've knitted it in this soft, it's like cloud soft merino alpaca blend. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a 70-30 blend. It's just delicious. I think it's 70-30. I've said that. Now I need to double check. I think it is. I hope it is. Anyway, it's a blend of alpaca and merino. And it's from Great Ocean Road. Do you remember a couple of episodes ago when I was in Melbourne, I got a chance to go and visit Great Ocean Road and have a look around and talk to Isabel and Nick about what they were up to? This is their yarn. So I bought a skein there and I wasn't sure what I would do with it. I thought a hat. I just didn't know I would actually just design a hat. But once I looked at it, I thought, and sort of felt it, I thought, it just needs a tiny bit of texture. It just needs something kind of fun and it's going to be so warm. So I've made this hat with these tiny bobbles on. Like it's not crazy with bobbles. And at the crown decreases, they sort of disappear. So you don't have so many bobbles at the crown. But they're just 2-row bobbles. They're not crazy big bobbles because the needle size is quite large. The gauge is quite a big gauge for this. You can knit this in one evening, this hat. It's so fast. And so the bobbles, you just can do them over 2 rows. They're really, really easy. So you can find the pattern now. It's on Ravelry. I've got an interview with Nick and Isabel in just a minute. So we're going to talk a bit more about the yarn they've got. This one was called Apollo. I used Apollo. Apollo was one of their alpacas. He's a beautiful alpaca. But they've got a range of yarn that would be great for this hat. You need a bulky yarn, like a 12-ply, bulky, chunky. There are all the different names for this weight yarn around the world. They have a range called Labella. Anything in their Labella range will work really beautifully. And there's a range of natural colours that they've been able to achieve by just changing the proportions of alpaca and merino. So this is just a lovely woody grey, sort of with a brown tinge to it. And then they have something that's a little bit lighter, a black and white speckle. It's beautiful, the range. So I'll put a link to their shop in the show notes. if you're at Soulcraft this weekend in Melbourne, you can go and visit them and buy some of their yarn directly from them. Have a squish of it and have a feel. They'll be at Soulcraft in Melbourne this weekend, so go and say hi. And if you want to grab the hat over the course of this weekend, so today is the 8th, if you want to grab the hat over the course of this weekend, you can get it with a discount. It's 10% off. Just use the code BOBBY. If you're a newsletter subscriber, I actually have a slightly better discount for my newsletter subscribers. So if you want to sign up to my mini mag, there's a link below as well. Go and sign up. And then you'll get to know about future discounts and new patterns, and you'll read all my articles and stuff as they come along. Is that all I had to tell you? I think so. So I've got my new hat. I've got this cool interview with Isabel and Nick. I think you're going to love them. They're absolutely fantastic. They started their mill about 3 years ago. They'll tell you the story of how they got into it. They bought a mini mill from Canada, and the people came out and assembled it for them and showed them what to do and then left. And there they were with a mill. And they didn't come from any kind of milling experience. So they've done amazingly well in 3 years. The yarn they're producing is beautiful. I love it that they're creating all these different a whole palette of natural colours just by the way that they blend natural fibres. There's no dyeing that's gone on at the moment. I really love that. It's just, to me, it's one of those things where you can have to be creative within a framework. Makes you super creative. I think that's it's something I've realised through my life, really, that if you start putting rules on yourself, it's a little bit of a digression, but if you start putting rules on yourself about what you can and can't create, like how much money you can spend. I remember there was an artist who only spent $1 on every piece, or what materials you're going to use, or what colour scheme you're going to use. I think the White Stripes are a band where they had really, really strict rules about what they were going to do. So all their band covers were red, white, black. I think that was right, red, white, black. That was it. They wouldn't let themselves use any other colours. And when they were on the stage, they had rules about how far they could get, or whether they had a cable to the speaker or not. Lots of little rules. Gives you a framework so that within that you can be just super creative. I think it's a good thing to remember if you're struggling to know quite what to do. Put some boundaries on it. Give yourself less choice, and then the creativity will start to bubble up in you. I think sometimes too much choice is overwhelming. For a lot of us, I think for most of us, too much choice is overwhelming. I mean, there's just endless, this sort of inspiration and choice. Anyway, I totally digress. But I just think that Isabel and Nick, what they're doing is that they have this. So far, they've had this framework of using these natural fibres, working with the machinery they've got, and creating different weights, different plies, different blends, to create this range of colours, this range of different fibres or yarns that perform in a different way. So I'm really impressed. I hope you enjoy the interview. I'm sure you will. It's really fun. They're just such a lovely couple. I look forward to seeing them again next year when I head off to Melbourne again. And I'm going to see you in a couple of weeks. Don't forget to go and grab your copy of Bobby. I think you can bring it into the knit along, in the colourful knit along, because if you do want to make a bright Bobby, then go for it. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Happy knitting. Bye, everybody. See ya.
Okay. All right. Hello and welcome to Great Ocean Road Wooler Mill. This is our shed where we create all our yarns.
Awesome.
And the first machine that our fibre comes into is our washing machine. We wash all our alpaca on site. We wash at 55 degrees and we use a low phosphate detergent. We're not connected to town water, so we only use rainwater, and we use a low phosphate detergent that goes into our orchard. So on the back side of the mill is our apple orchard, where we have lovely apples, as you might know.
Yeah, they were delicious.
Yeah. And so we wash for about 2 hours, and we call it washing. We don't think alpaca needs scouring because it doesn't have the lanolin, the grease that sheep's wool has. So we try to, I guess, treat our alpaca as minimally as possible. For the merino and the poleworth that we use, we do get that scoured, and that's scoured in Geelong, which is about 2 hours east of here. and the scour in Geelong has been going for around 100 years. They've made a lot of changes over the years, so that they basically offer a couple of different services. So they scour, they also carbonise, and carbonising is the part that we don't do. If you ever buy our yarns, you might find that they come with a little bit of vegetable matter, the odd little grass seed. Carbonising is basically where they scour it first to get rid of the lanolin. They then bathe the wool in an acid bath, which breaks down that vegetable matter. Unfortunately, that acid then stains the wool yellow. So in order to get it back to the natural white, they put it in a bleach bath. So you've added not only the detergent for the scouring, you've bathed it in acid, you've then bleached it to get it back to white. We don't do that in our wool that we do use, so it's only ever been scoured, just to have the lanolin taken out of it. And as a result, we do still have grass seeds in our yarn, but at least they're clean grass seeds. Also, the scour in Geelong, and I guess that's one of the beauties of doing things in Australia, is that they're quite harsh on the Environmental Protection Authority. So all the lanolin that is in the wastewater actually gets extracted out. And one of the funny things, it's probably turned into a more profitable business than the scouring, because that then goes off to the cosmetic companies such as Nivea for your hand creams and face creams. So it's actually quite an environmentally friendly practice to do these days, as best as you can, by getting your wool done, at least in a first world country like Australia or New Zealand, as opposed to offshore, I guess. So yeah, it's all our fibre is only either being washed by us or it's been scoured in Robinson's in Geelong. So as environmentally friendly and as local as we can keep it, because that is one of the things that we do like to do. So once our...
Any questions, Libby? You look like you've got a question.
I'm not. I'm just going to keep you talking, and I'm going to ask you lots of questions in a minute. Yeah. Okay. Go for it. I'm so interested. Keep going.
Interrupt at any time.
I know. Yeah.
So once we're finished washing, we then air dry our fibre in these baskets. So here's a lovely black alpaca fleece that was washed the other day, still slightly damp. At this time of the year, it takes a little bit longer because we do just air dry. It's like you're washing at home.
So it just sits in those baskets to air dry. You don't hang it anywhere.
No, so just in these baskets, we toss it over once in a while, pull it apart to let the air get through it. And on really summery days, we'll actually move the baskets around to different parts so that they dry faster, but also so it keeps more of the moisture in the mill.
Yeah.
We need about 55% humidity inside the mill, otherwise we get static, that creates problems.
Because it seems Melbourne seemed quite dry to me, or at least where we were. So is it not normally humid there? Not like us. We have terrible humidity.
No, we're quite dry. We have very wet winters, but we have generally quite dry summers. Right. So as a result, it's sort of good to do the air drying like we do here. Keep it in the shed as much as we can. In winter, we'll often take the fibre to the house, put it by the fireplace just to dry it out a little bit faster. But, keep it as low impact as possible.
Yeah.
Once the fibre is dry, we put it in these buckets, and then we come to our picker.
You want to mention about the wool being rehydrated?
Oh, yeah. When the wool comes from the scourer, they put it through like an industrial hairdryer, which sucks all the moisture out of it, so it can be stored in the bales for a long time. What that means, though, is the moment we go to work with it, we need to rehydrate it. So we actually have a little spray bottle. We'll pull the wool out of the bale and actually put moisture back into the fibre and let it sit overnight to reabsorb that moisture. Otherwise, it starts off with static, and that's no good for anybody. So this is our picker, or an opener. So the fibre comes in along the white conveyor belt, in through the little spiky rollers, and then gets hit by these big 1-inch teeth, which go around really, really fast, and throw the fibre into a room.
And that's like a little sealed room, isn't it? So it doesn't get any of the dust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it comes out looking a little bit like white fluff.
Cool. And you do that for both the wool and the alpaca?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we come to our next machine, which is our dehairer. A little bit dusty, very dusty animals.
Yeah.
And this is where our alpaca goes through. So it's a very slow machine. It takes us about 2 hours per kilo. But it means that when you wear that beanie out of a polo, that you're not going to have that prickle factor that alpaca can really give sometimes. So it's a slow machine, but it's really worthwhile. And basically, the idea is it separates the fibre into 3 grades. So you get a coarser grade in the first chamber. You then get a medium grade in the second chamber. And then out the back, you get a really fine, better product. The finest fibre that's in that animal is what comes out at this end.
So what do the other two have uses? Can you use the other 2 grades?
Yeah, so if they're clean enough, we can still spin them up. It would just be not a product that you'd want to wear next to skin. So it might be something that you do for a felting yarn, or it might be something that you outerwear or something like that. If it's really dirty, then we can felt it up, and our dogs have the most glorious alpaca beds.
luxury beds.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Once it's been through there, which is the dehairer, we then come to our carder. So this is the heart.
So I just interrupt. The dehairer is not used for wool, so just for alpaca, because alpaca is a hair. Which,
right, of course. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that is from a fibre perspective.
And so when you're getting it, so it's already been skirted. Do you skirt alpaca in the same way you skirt wool to get rid of all those?
Yes.
You do.
Yeah.
So it's just a second. It's a second sort of getting like a second process on top of that initial skirting.
Yeah, and it's basically from a animal perspective. A lot of the animals have guard hair around their chest, and so within their saddle and within their staples. So it's a bit like with us as well, that we have different. Our hair is probably not all the same thickness. Yeah. So it's more to do with that, and from a breeding perspective, in the associations in Australia as much as in New Zealand, anywhere, they're trying to minimize the micron difference of the guard hair versus the primary fibers.
Okay.
so it doesn't show that much anymore. And it gets you better yield, I guess.
Yeah.
Of the animal.
Do you think that making them more similar, does that affect the animal in any way, or is our weather kind of a bit more conducive to not needing such thick guard hair on them?
Probably, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't know.
No. Yeah.
It's probably partially that. And because they're not, they're better looked after nowadays than if they're in the wild, of course. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Okay, cool. So we've de-haired, we've haired them.
Yep.
Yeah. So now we card.
So this is our carder.
Yep.
So the fibre comes in along the white belt again. It gets fed into the inside of the machine, and then it travels around, and there's a big central drum, and there's pairs of what we call workers that put the fibre on, put the fibre off, put the fibre on, until it comes out the other end as a sausage.
I love the way it comes out like that.
So we can turn it on for you if you'd like.
Yep, let's have a little listen. Everyone can be prepared for some noise.
I'll turn the noisy part off.
Okay. That comes out into those big cans at the end. Gorgeous.
I don't know whether you can see this properly, sort of coming off.
Yeah, so I remember when we were there, you talked about that gap there, and how you needed a certain length of staple to get through that gap.
Yeah, it needs to be about 6 centimeters long.
Yeah.
To be able to travel that distance.
So long is okay, but short is not okay then.
Basically,
yeah.
If it's shorter, it just won't travel the distance, just falls on the ground.
Right.
And there's nothing we can do about it. So.
Okay. And do you when you're starting the process off, if someone was to send you some alpaca to spin or some wool to spin and the staple was short, is that something you would figure out from the beginning, or is that something that sort of has to get to this process to...
No,
no, you can visually see the difference, and we'd say, oh, that's going to cause problems, or no, that'll be all right, or whatever. Yeah.
Okay, so you're not going to get a nasty surprise now. You would have already had some warning of that.
No, that's been one of our learnings.
Yeah, I bet. There's so much to learn. There's so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we've got it coming out there. Now, I always forget, what's the difference between roving and slither? And is this either of those two things?
Yeah, the word's a little bit interchangeable with most people. So we would call this a roving.
Yeah.
But it is a sliver, really, technically
speaking. Technically, it is a sliver, but it's just commonly referred to as a roving. There are also tops. So if it comes from a large industrial carder with a comb attached to it, it would come out as a comb top, which is a lot denser.
And that's a proper roving, isn't it?
And that would be, proper roving. But
so the fact that it's lighter and a bit springier makes this a slither.
Yeah, and that
pretty much.
and I think because it hasn't been combed.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I think it's to do with that side of things.
Terminology is a bit sort of
loose.
Hazy around the edges. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So we've still got just one colour coming out at this stage. There's no blending of colours that's happened yet. Is there?
Well, this is our salt and pepper. So
okay.
We're coming through the carder at the moment. So at the moment there's a bit of white coming through.
Yeah.
And then we'll see and play with the colours as it comes through. But over here, the next machine, you can actually see two different colours coming together.
Yeah.
So we're blending it a little bit more here. And this is our draw frame. And this makes us a semi-worsted yarn as opposed to a worsted yarn or a woolen spun yarn.
Yeah.
So this machine makes us semi-worsted. And basically as a result of this machine, our yarn tends to have a little bit more loft, has a little bit more airy feel in amongst it. And a lot of people actually say that with our yarns, you can tell that it's either a sheep's wool or it's an alpaca. You can actually almost still feel the animal that it's come from.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So it hasn't been stretched to...
No, it's really plump. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Which is, we like it, so we think it's good.
Yeah. Okay, so this goes through a series of teeth here, is that right? Or what are they?
So
like combs.
So in the middle there's a really fine little comb just where my finger is there.
Oh, yeah.
Can you see it?
Yep, I can see that.
And the fibre gets dragged across the top of those combs. It's like putting a finishing brush through your hair.
Yeah.
It just helps to align the fibres all in the same direction.
But it's not it's not combed and combed again like you would with a true worsted spun.
No.
It's retained some of that woolliness. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Cool.
So we pass it through here twice and collect it in the drums. And there's an example of some grass seeds still coming along.
Yeah. They just add character, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So once it's been through there, we then come ready for spinning. So the fibre starts over the back.
Yeah.
It comes along, and it comes through a couple of guides. And it's just like spinning at home, except on a good day we can do 8 at once.
Wow.
So we use a leader to start off the fibre.
Sorry.
We then lock it down. We check all our settings are right. And in a perfect world, I'll turn it on and we'll make a...
Sorry.
So is that spinning and plying it at the same time?
No,
this is just spinning it. And so what's coming out? It looked at the bottom as if it was separating into two, but is it just one? It's just the way it was spinning around and around. I see.
Yeah. It's just a lumpy bit on the bobbin.
So that so that's another way. So there's another place that you can blend colours together.
So you could put a couple of different colours together, you spin a single strand, add different colours, and work out a variation that way.
Yeah.
So it's really, we find it really interesting that this is a very technical part of the mill, but it's also, I guess, really fascinating because it goes from being something that's quite fat and fluffy and very weak, and the only thing that actually holds it together is the twist.
Yeah. And that's a single, and it's still got a good amount of strength in it. Mm.
Yeah, so...
Yeah.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that pop?
I heard the pop. Yeah.
Excellent. That's what we're always aiming for, a pop. It shows it's got some good strength.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
So this is where we spin it up. So the back bar puts in the draft, the amount of resistance, and limits how much fibre comes through at any given time. The front bar puts in the twist as it gets dragged over these little grooves, and in conjunction with the bobbins spinning around really, really fast. So if we wanted to make a skinnier yarn, we could add more draft, so limit how much fibre comes through with the back roller, and we can add more twist to make it a little bit stronger as well, and we could spin it either faster or slower. So if we're making a bulkier yarn, we'd probably spin it a little bit slower, a little less twist, because you've got more fibre there holding the strand together. The skinnier the yarn, you probably want to add more twist, and so there's lots of variations and permutations, I guess, as to how to put the yarn together. Yeah. And it's been a fair bit of just learning as we go and trialling things and seeing what works and what we like the look of. Yeah,
because it sounds like there's a real art to it, to getting that part right.
Yeah, there is. And I guess even I might create something that still I think I'm very happy with, but until it gets into the hands of people knitting it or crocheting it, we're still not going to know exactly whether it's the right yarn, so to speak.
Trial and error, yeah.
And
you talked about there being, is this the machine that there was lots of maths involved, that you loved that idea? Is this the one when you were just telling us the other day? So it's...
actually the draw frames where all the maths really start, about the different fibres drawing differently, and on the first pass it's roughly around 1 metre becomes 3 metres, and on the second pass it's about that 1 metre becomes about 2.5 metres, but every fibre is a little bit different. So alpaca tends to generally draw out a little bit more, so if you're passing straight alpaca through there, it's going to just be about 3.03 metres per metre that goes in, whereas straight lamb's wool, for example, might come out around 2.87.
Yeah.
So, and that all impacts the fibre that comes out that end, which then impacts the thickness of the roving.
Yeah.
If it's been stretched out a little bit more or whatever else, and that then impacts, if we're trying to make a yarn that's 140 metres per 100 grams, how we actually get to that. So. So there's a lot of mathematics involved, a lot more than we ever realised.
Yeah,
so,
it's amazing. And maths is everywhere, isn't it? It's amazing. I had one more question I had was, so with the the roving that you put into this machine to spin it, you can blend the wool and alpaca together at that stage. It doesn't just have to be one or the other, even though they might draw differently? Or do you tend to keep it just alpaca?
We would blend that together just here.
Okay. Right.
At the draw frame,
Right.
Which we could do.
Yeah.
It does create some problems doing alpaca and wool side by side because of that rate of drawing. So it can be a bit tricky.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
So to draw, probably the best thing is probably to blend it earlier at the carder or even all the way back at the picker.
Yeah.
So that the fibres are more evenly spread, but then it gives you a more homogeneous colour. So if we're after something rather contrasting or varied, then the later you blend it, the more that happens.
And
which
then,
is all.
Yeah,
Yep.
sorry. I was just going to say, and then the final, I guess, when you are applying it, then you've got the option of having a real barber pole look, haven't you?
Absolutely.
But if you want anything less than that, it must be. Yeah, there's a real art to it. There really is an art to it.
Yeah, so it makes it really interesting because there's so many, I guess, variations as to what you can do and where you can do things. But ultimately, it comes down to the product, I guess, that you're wanting to make. And by that stage, it's usually been designed by somebody else, the one holding the camera.
So I see. So you just have to figure out how you're going to make it work to exactly those specifications.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a bit like that, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so now we've got our single. What happens now? We go over to
so we would then come to our plying machine. So we would take 1, 2, or 3 strands together. Mm-hmm. So most of our yarns are a 3-strand. So we would put those 3 strands together and spin the opposite direction to take out some of that twist because we're trying to get a balanced yarn. And that's another reason why I like 3 strands. I find they give a much more balanced yarn.
They are nice and plump, nice round yarn.
Yeah. Whereas, but again, I don't knit, I don't crochet, I just make the yarn. So
you just do what you're told.
My opinion doesn't really matter a lot in the end of the day.
Okay.
But so this basically just puts those 3 strands together and it'll apply it together. Into a 3-stranded yarn. We check for balance. So if it gets a little bit of recoil like that, we'd say that's probably on the edge of being a little bit too much.
Right.
You want a yarn that's got some life to it, but you don't want a yarn that's too twisty because when you knit it, it won't create a square. It'll end up being that trapezoid sort of a shape. So if you end up knitting something like that, it probably hasn't been plied correctly. Yeah,
that's the challenge of the spinner as well, the hand spinner.
Yeah, absolutely. So once we've filled this bobbin, we then transfer them onto paper cones.
Right.
And this is a little bit of the lovely Eva.
Oh, beautiful.
Another batch that we've recently made.
Yeah.
So we transfer it onto paper cones and then we steam it. So we pass it through a dirty steamer. It's not really dirty.
So each individual, the individual strand is unwoven and goes through that hole.
No,
it's not.
No.
Oh, I was going to say that's going to take ages.
So this is the plied yarn.
Yeah.
So that we then put the finished yarn through the steamer just to set the twist.
Okay.
So it comes off the comb we've just put it on.
Yeah, and it feeds through that and then things.
Up through the tube, up to the hook on the wall, and then back onto another comb.
Wow, that's a long process.
Yeah.
And it sets the twist.
It sets the twist. Yeah.
Yeah. So all up, it takes us about 10 hours of machine time to get it to this stage.
Yeah.
Per kilo of 8-ply. If we do a finer yarn, then it takes longer.
Yeah.
A little bit bulkier, takes a little bit quicker. But all in all, it's a very hands-on process. It's a very involved process, and it's something that we've spent an awful lot of time learning about over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And still learning.
Every day we learn.
Yeah, I reckon. Wow. And so, but the final, the way we get it at the end is in a skein. And so from the cone, then who does the skeining? How does that happen? It's because that's a huge job as well.
It is.
Yeah.
This is our skein winder.
Ah, okay.
So we put the cone down the bottom.
And you can do lots at a time then on that big white one.
So we can do 3 at a time.
Oh, okay. Well, not heaps then, yeah.
No. And it is motor driven, but for the purposes of today.
Yeah.
And that's
we haven't turned it on.
Just goes around
and that makes your skein. And it's all brilliant.
Yeah.
Then
we've got little scales down at the bottom there to make sure.
Yeah.
That it does what it needs to do.
Yeah.
Comes out as a skein. We take it off and twist it by hand.
Oh, flippity gibbet, that's a lot of work. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And that's how you make a yarn.
Yeah, that's
Easy as
fantastic. That's fantastic. Oh, that's cool. So do you want to go and sit down and answer some questions with me, or do you want to stand up? It's up to you.
Yeah, we will take you out.
Oh,
again.
that was so interesting. So you've been doing this for 3 years. What were you doing? What were you doing before that? Is it anything that's related? We can't see your face so well, Isabel. You'll have to snuggle up a little.
Okay.
It gets quite cozy doing these interviews.
Yeah, no. It's like funny in that little picture at the bottom. I can see both of us. So
yeah.
No, but very different backgrounds. I used to work in the corporate world.
Yeah.
Before I came to Australia, well, before we got married, I used to work for American Express in IT as a project manager. And then when I came out here, I worked for a small credit union as a risk manager. And you?
Yeah, I've done everything from carpet laying to sales to gardening, which was my last job before becoming a professional spinner.
So what made you take the plunge then? What was the conversation that happened about shall we start a mill? I mean, that's just not your everyday over dinner conversation.
No.
We had the tree change idea of buying a small block of land, and then we decided on getting a couple of alpacas, which got shorn every year, and say, well, what do you do with their fibre?
Yeah.
And it was really hard to find anybody to do anything with it, so we talked about it and thought about it and thought, well, let's give it a go. It can't be too hard, as you do.
As you do, yeah.
Yeah, we just jumped right into it. We did all the figures, the business figures, and we originally worked on the basis that we were going to do commissioning work for others, basically, which then sort of changed quite a bit because there's actually a lot of people who don't do anything with their lovely fibre, which is a real shame.
So what, they just have all the alpaca and just for pets, but they get them shorn and what happens to the fibre? Just
they burn.
Oh,
they burn. In all seriousness, this is one of the most incredible things. They either want a lot of money for the fibre, or they'd rather burn it if they can't get it.
Oh,
anyway, that's our little.
That was a challenge, that's for sure.
Mm. Yes. But yeah, that's really how we kind of, sort of started. The idea started, and we talked about it, and one day we just said, right, that's it. Yeah, let's just do it. So.
And were you already involved in the fibre industry, like as a hobby? Or did you knit or spin or anything like that?
I learned to knit and to crochet as a little girl, as I think a lot of us do, and then I got busy with life and got completely away from knitting. And that's about the extent of my fibre knowledge. And I think that interestingly enough, the having had our two first boys, alpaca boys, we really wanted to start learning about fibre, and that's the other thing we really wanted to learn and just couldn't. It's really quite difficult if you're not in the industry, and even if you are part of the industry, to actually learn everything we've learned so far. So
we didn't even know how to skirt a fleece when we started, so
let alone
it's such a crazy adventure.
It is, but then I guess one of the bonuses of knowing nothing is that we didn't know the word no. We didn't realise what you could or couldn't do. So we've just tried so many different things that we probably shouldn't have done, or people say that we shouldn't do or couldn't do. And, some things work out surprisingly well.
Yeah, so tell me one of those. Tell me something that people might have said no and then you gave it a bash. Can you think of anything off the top of your head?
Long suri is one.
Right.
So suri alpaca can grow quite long, and it was only by mistake when we started having some problems spinning a yarn that we went back and looked at the fibre that was still going through the dehair at that stage and realised it was actually over our limit for what we could spin, which explained why it was having some difficulty at the spinner, but we were still actually able to spin quite a bit of it. So okay, well, that 15 centimetre rule, as a rule, does exist, but you can stretch that a little bit further out, and we've done fibre up to around 24 centimetres.
Wow, that is really long. Because the Eva yarn that you've just done, that was suri, wasn't it?
Yes, that was Surrey within the limits.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. And you have a Surrey alpaca outside, don't you? I met one of your alpacas that was Surrey. Yeah. So does some of that Surrey and the Eva yarn come from your alpaca?
It comes from the same genetics.
From the same farm.
The same farm. We brought him in as a friend for one of our boys. So the lady also sold some lovely Surrey. So yes, very nice.
Oh, that's really good. And so you've grown your flock of alpaca at the same time alongside this. And so how many alpaca do you have now?
20.
20.
So we still don't have many.
We have more than I've got. I've got none. They're so lovely. Yeah.
Oh,
and you have been able to use them quite a bit, though. Some of the yarns, like we were talking before about the hat that I've just made out of Apollo, and Apollo is one of your alpaca.
He is, yeah. And another one who's been quite popular is Valentine. Yeah. We did a bit of a test with her from a 4-ply and did a 4-ply 1 year and then used exactly the same recipe at the spinner the following year. And what's quite interesting is that she got that little bit thicker, which is all to do with the micron, of course. So the yarn, instead of being, 390 meters, 100 grams, ended up being 255, 100 grams. So, and these are the kind of learnings, I think, from a fiber perspective, what we really have learned is about how they blow out, how they change, and
But the beauty of having a small operation is, I guess, you can then just change. You can test things out and you can change quite quickly. You're not committed to this huge amounts of yarn.
Absolutely. And when we look at playing with the new yarn, we might literally do 100 or 200 grams to see if that's going to be the look that we want or the feel that we want. And that is the beauty of having a small mill, that we can literally take the fleece of one animal and follow it all the way through and see how it comes out and play with it and change it and alter it. And
So how do you decide on what yarns to make? I know you get some commissions, don't you, from people, but a lot of the stuff that you sell, how do you get there? I mean, there are so many possibilities with combining fibers and colours and weights. And what sort of drives you to make the choices that you've made, and what do you love the best? It's the other thing I want to know.
The choice is probably all of the above, all of the bits you've just said. So with our own animals, when we have babies, when they first get shorn, they usually only have about 500-600 grams on them. So and to make that go further, literally that's where we have put some superfine merino in with it. So to just stretch out the volume, I guess. Yeah. From a colour perspective, this is one of the things I've really enjoyed so far, is to take the natural alpaca colours and blend them with a variety of wool. So as you know, we do a bit of with Colworth, which is a coloured sheet, and as well as, of course, the white merino. And you see just how different it comes out. It's actually quite incredible. So, for example, Apollo yarn being very, very interesting. I will send you a photo of him, what he looks like in the
I'd love to see that.
And you will not believe, in comparison to what the yarn looks like, what he actually looks like. So it's really, I think that anyway. So it's really quite fascinating how the natural fibers sort of work together. Yeah. We've started to learn as well more about the different properties. So, for example, alpaca is fantastic. It's super soft usually, and really warm, very insulating fiber, but it can drape quite a bit because it hasn't got the same memory as wool has. Yeah. So this is partially why we've started blending wool, whether merino or Polworth, in with the alpaca. Yeah. So if somebody wants to make a jumper, they actually can. You don't necessarily want to think about it. Yeah, you want to be a bit careful.
So that's the beauty of having the alpaca in the hat that I've got, which is about a 70-30, wasn't it? And so it just gives me that slight drape that I'm after. It's not a stiff little pillbox on my head. It's actually a slight slouch. I love that about it. It's having the alpaca in it does that. Yeah, and it's so warm. It's so warm. Yeah, it's fantastic. In a minute, I'm going to get you to grab me some off the wall so you can show me all the different colours you've got. But the other thing I wanted to ask you was, there's this kind of whole emphasis on going low impact. You're washing your alpaca fleece in rainwater, which is, I've tried that myself with wool here. It's amazing how effective it is. And there's lots of, you talk about low processing and doing small things and using fibre that comes from very close to you. And what's your main driver for that? Is it to support the industry, or is it about, environmental concerns, or everything? I mean, is there anything that's more important to you?
I think there's a couple of reasons for it. One is the practicality that we tend to work almost 6-7 days a week on our farm. If we're not in the mill, then we're doing something with the animals. So we don't have time to go very far, I guess, to source a lot of fibre. Also, we actually live off our apples and our orchard, and we grow veggies, and we've had the odd lamb and the odd cow that have gone into the freezer and that sort of stuff. So we're not greenies, but we just want to know that when we eat something, it's as natural and as healthy as it should be.
Yeah.
So we don't want to put a whole lot of harsh chemicals out into our paddocks. So there's that, I think, almost common sense approach to that as well, that it's just, if we eat something that's grown on the backside of our shed, then we don't want it to be sitting in poison.
Basically.
Yeah.
And because we're really not connected to town water, so we have a number of different rainwater tanks, and we collect the rain, and that's the only water we use. And but also everything, all the water, all of our wastewater will go into our paddocks.
Yeah.
So apart from the toilet, of course. And that does make it very, very different. And I think, as Nick said, you just start getting a different outlook and start thinking about it twice, what you put out into the soil, and because you are living off it. So.
And I think for the other fibres that we do get from elsewhere, so our merino comes from about 50 kilometres away, and our poleworth that we use comes from Tandy. So again, for us, it's about that localness in keeping the fibre that's grown right here as close to home as you can, because there's no point in buying something from Western Australia that's going to travel virtually as far as coming from New Zealand, only to have it processed by us and then possibly sent back or something like that. So it's a little bit about, I guess, almost, for me, having grown up in this area, there's a sense of pride about the beautiful fibres that are grown right in our own back door, and rather than packing them up and sending them overseas, we should try to do something with it here. So, and I think it adds to that story that you can trace where our fibre comes from. The alpaca that we do buy in, because we don't have enough alpaca for all the yarns that we create, they come from 2 or 3 special farms that we know the people who grow them. We respect how they deal with their animals and their fibre, and it's about, I guess, that whole story. So it's not a faceless organisation producing something, and from visiting Tom's farm, it's a family affair. So I guess there is a bit of a warm and fuzzy that comes with that.
I think so, yeah. It's about relationships too, isn't it? It's about knowing and trusting the people that you deal with, and knowing that what you're doing is actually, it means something, I think, doesn't it? It's good. It is warm and fuzzy, it definitely is, but it feels good. I think it feels like the right thing to do.
Yeah. And one of the things that sounds a bit corny, but we say on our website as well that we create yarns with heart. So they're yarns with a backstory. They're yarns that have had a bit of blood, sweat and tears and the odd swear word thrown in there at them. They are yarns that we feel passionate about. So, it's...
Yeah. And so it would be nice to get them in lots of people's hands, I think. They need to try this stuff. Go and grab me some off the wall so we can show them the beautiful colours. And because you've got a good range of colours there. And so some of the colour will be from different coloured animals, won't it?
Yes.
And others will be from blending the animals together. Animals, but blending the fibre together. Yeah.
So you look at Eva as a yarn we did with Tandy there, that the colour in that yarn actually comes from the Polworth sheep.
Because it's a beautifully vanilla. It's like a slightly sort of fawny kind of colour, isn't it? It's really pretty.
So they have the Polwarth have a natural brown gene within that fibre. So even though it comes out grey, you can almost still see that brown tinge that comes through occasionally.
Yeah.
So that gives it a different hue and a different effect.
What's quite interesting, I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, no,
this.
one's quite grey and one's quite blonde.
So that's grey alpaca. So alpaca come in actual greys. Well, I think we all sort of call it grey, whereas you can see that slight brown tinge in the Polwarth here.
Yeah. And that's just by blending it with different coloured alpaca and
So what we've done, for example, with the Polwarth, so that's another sort of blend we've done with Fawn, and even a stronger one. So same kind of thing, but you see the sort of, it gets more
beautiful.
Yeah, that sort of brownish kind of colour.
Yeah.
And again.
Yeah, sorry. No, you go. I was going to ramble.
No, I was just going to say, and again, it depends on, I guess the colour depends on when we start to blend back in the equipment. So if you wanted a very consistent colour, then you start to blend it earlier.
Yeah.
Whereas yarns like
salt and pepper.
Oh, it's beautiful, that one. I love that one. That will make the best jumper, I think.
Yeah.
Don't you? Oh, so beautiful.
Yeah. But that's sort of the difference. So that's another Polwarth blended with alpaca.
Right. So that one's got so dark. So is that a different proportion of alpaca to it, or just a completely different alpaca that's in it?
Different alpaca,
basically. So it's quite interesting. And then you get sort of so these are now our merino blends. So that's with brown alpaca.
Yeah.
So brown alpaca and white merino.
Yeah. Then two different shades of grey.
Beautiful. Oh, the greys are just beautiful.
And then you got the sort of normal sort of alpaca colours. Alpacas come in 22 official colours.
Yeah.
Anything from a natural white to a solid black, and black alpaca is just as black as you.
Yeah.
As
black
anything.
as the night. Yeah. It is gorgeous. Now the hat that I've done, I use the Apollo yarn, which is from your alpaca in the garden, and there isn't a heck of a lot left of that one. But we've talked about how there's you've got other yarns that we can sub in for that. So show me we can show me that Apollo, and then we can perhaps look at the other ones that would be a good alternative, because they're all going to have similar blends. I'll put my hat on so you can see my hat. See, there's my hat.
So that's Apollo.
Yeah. So
we've got 2 left.
Yeah, we've got 2 left, and we're going to have some of that another day, but not at the moment.
Yeah, but after shearing.
Yeah.
Then we've got, and Apollo really, in terms of the makeup of that yarn, falls right into our labella range. Our labella range is basically where we use superfine merino and alpaca.
Yeah.
So, which is what Apollo is as well. And as you said earlier, it's 70-30.
Yeah.
Now, these blend proportions are slightly different because we do it's mainly, same as Apollo, mainly wool.
Yeah.
And so it just varies a little bit because of the colours we want to achieve. But we either do it in what we call a red marble, which has got like sort of a brownish tinge. It's a bit like Apollo, but just a bit lighter. Or we do it in a grey.
Beautiful.
And then, as I think you mentioned, I saw on your post, so you can also use the salt and pepper, and as well as the dark grey, which I didn't pick up, or I did, from our labella range, which I just said slightly a little bit thinner, or the yardage is a little bit longer than
but I think it would still work really well. I think you'd get gauge with that one. Oh, fantastic. So there are lots of options. So rather than going to the energy and the everything that's involved with dyeing, you're able to create this beautiful palette just with blending different colours and blending different fibres. Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for talking to me. Is there anything I've forgotten to ask you that you're busting to tell me?
We are at Soulcraft.
Oh, yeah. Tell me where you're going to be so people can come and find you.
So we're going to go to Soulcraft. So is Soulcraft going to be just before you
It's my daughter's birthday that weekend. It's the 8th and 9th of 8th and 9th of June.
On the Saturday. So we are, and Nick is just going to go and get it.
Oh, yeah. Tell me what you're launching.
So we're launching
2 yarns.
You were asking earlier on about the no bit.
Yeah.
Somebody says to us no, and one of the things we're certainly not supposed to be able to do is cotton. So we are launching 2 different yarns. We're launching a 50-50 cotton merino blended yarn.
Fabulous.
And we're working actually with Bryony.
Yeah.
And it's going to come out in 4 different colors and the natural.
Lovely. Yep.
And we also got a straight cotton. So this
Straight
is
cotton.
Australian.
Australian cotton.
Australian cotton. And we are officially the only mill now in Australia spinning us Australian cotton.
That is
because
fantastic.
the last mill basically went to Vietnam last year.
Ah, okay.
So it's really quite exciting.
Well done. That's awesome. So a 50-50 merino cotton and 100% cotton.
Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, that's fantastic. And they'll be out. So it'll be when this goes out and everyone's watching. It's this weekend. It's the 8th. So the 9th on the 9th of June, you'll be at Soulcraft with this new yarn. So people have to watch out for it. And then the 10th, because they may not watch it till the 9th and the 10th. Oh, fantastic. And then after that, they can buy it from you off your website.
Basically,
along with everything else. There'll be everything else.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool. Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. Exciting. It's just more cool things to look forward to, aren't there?
Absolutely.
Oh, it is, and it is really interesting for us. It's a lot about that challenge.
Yeah.
And cotton. Look, I personally quite like working with cotton, especially because it gets so hot here in the summer, of course. And you know, it'll be quite nice to work with something a little bit cooler as well. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. Oh, well, thank you so much for talking to me. I enjoy your company, and I really enjoyed looking around the mill. Again, it was fantastic, and hopefully I'll see you again next year when I pop back over. I'll be back.
You'll have to.
I definitely will. Okay.
We'll keep some figs and apples for you.
Yeah, please. Oh gosh, they were fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. All right.
We'll stay in touch, certainly.
Oh, fantastic.
Is it a hat, or is it the start of a blanket? Maybe a ball, or even a shawl for a baby. There's no excuse now not to be knitting, 'cause you can do it standing, and you can do it sitting. Take out your needles, we're casting on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for once I got official love you. You can do it, Mary. You can do it, John. Is it a gnome or some other homely creation? Wait and see, it might even be for a teapot. There's no excuse now not to be knitting, 'cause you can do it standing and you can do it sitting. Take out your needle, we're casting on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for once I got official love you. You can do it, Mary. Yeah, you can do it, Mary. You can do it, Mary. And you can do it, John. Gilbert, what are you knitting? What are you knitting?
Nothing, man. I crochet.